Good morning, guys. Jackie from Famished Farm. And we have another work day today. I don't think it's going to be a full day, probably just a half day. We're going to start the project that uses the sweet gum pods that we harvested a couple days ago and finish off the planter that's behind me. And that's just a mulched area that kind of completes this row of junipers and lilies that goes alongside our carport. And then that L's into the driveway there. So this is a good project to finish. We put in this fence section last year, no, probably 2 years ago now, and just extended it out so you couldn't see the shed coming up the driveway. And I just noticed, I don't know if you can see it in this picture, but it looks like either a FedEx driver or hubby with mower, and actually looks like it was coming from the back, so that was probably a mower incident. I just noticed that. I'm sure he told me that I've forgotten. So at some point we'll have to replace those couple of pickets that are cracked. But anyway, we're nice and cool this morning. I forgot to look and see how cool it is. I'll flash it up on the screen. It's just a little chilly in shirt sleeves. There's a nice breeze blowing, but where I'm working is kind of protected by this fence, although I'm not quite sure which way the wind is coming. But and it will be shaded till, midday. So, and I don't think it's going to take that long. But what I'm going to do is remove the weeds, dig up some of the dirt to kind of level it off a bit and make it kind of slope into the asphalt, and then put those sweet gum pods there. That's what's on the agenda first. And once we get that dirt out of this area, I might grab a couple more scoopfuls in the wheelbarrow. And up at the rose bush, I've noticed it for a long time, there is a depression by the rose bush when I walk Tilly that I fall into every time, trip over. And I'm going to shore that up with some of this clay that's going to come out of here and kind of level that off a little bit. And then on the way back to the house, there's a couple places I want to trim some vegetation back. I'll do that. And then I'm going to do a little bit of maintenance in the front planters. Again, some deadheading some plants. And I'm going to hedge one of the boxwood hedges, shrubs up there really grows fast and it's looking shaggy again, so I'm going to hit that. And I've got a couple other little projects. Actually, I've left my list inside, so that's the first thing I'm going to do before I get started. I'll head inside and get my list so I don't forget anything, and then I can kind of have it staged in my mind this morning. It's early. It's before 8 o'clock, and I'm sorry, that's probably not early to many of you. My normal wake-up time is 7:30, so that's kind of early for me to be out here and going with makeup on. So it's amazing. But anyway, let's get started. Welcome to Alabama clay soil. This is after about a 3-week period of time with no rain this summer. We did have a couple inches of rain 3 weeks ago, not a drop since. So this is compacted clay, and I probably should be pulling out a pickaxe. I just don't happen to own one. So we're going to tackle this with just a shovel, and we'll see what else we need. But I have attach this wire planter to the actual fence with some metal strapping and a couple screws. When I first put it here, it would tip over when it got windy, so it's just got a couple screws and strapping holding it in place. And then I'm going to use my grandpa's weeder tool and get up some of these weeds. But to be honest with you, these are pretty much coming right out of the soil intact. So I really don't need the weeder even. Just gonna pull those up by hand and then move on. My plan here was to dig straight down from where the asphalt is and then kind of slope it from the fence line. And unfortunately, asphalt, it's not even, so it didn't really lend itself to digging straight down, nor did the compacted clay really allow me to do that. So what I'm going to end up doing is just a trench, shovel width apart right along the asphalt as close as I can get to it. And then I'll just try to grade that soil a little bit using just the shovel. And the shovel, as I'm doing, jabbing it there, it's getting, half an inch into the soil, maybe, sometimes not even that. And just doing the best I can to break this up and then grade it up a little bit. Projects like this just kind of crack me up because living in Florida, this would have taken 2 minutes in sandy soil. In Illinois, maybe 5 minutes in my nice black loamy soil. And here this turned into 30 minutes of, pretty strenuous digging. And strenuous and not accomplishing very much. I'm not getting good shovels full of soil out of here. I'm getting, paltry little measly, just dusty pieces of clay. So it's satisfying when it's done, but the whole process is just not very much fun. And this is making me really dread this fall when we're going to take down that fence line of trees on the north side of the property in the backyard, because I know that we're going to put another fence of some kind up there. And I mean, even if it's just a temporary fence to keep the dog in, so green T-post and some hardware cloth, or if we decide to go some 6-foot fence sections, it is no fun to dig in this, okay? Because not only do we have compacted clay, but then we've got growing right behind this is a Chinese elm. So here you can see I'm encountering the roots from that. And granted, they're not huge. Most of these were under an inch. But then also being in Alabama, there's rocks. Now, I'm super lucky today that I don't encounter anything past, pretty small gravel. I think the biggest one was maybe a couple inches long. So I got pretty lucky on that stretch, but this is just not fun. It doesn't go, I like fast projects. This was not a fast project. So most of the roots that I came across, I was able to just use the shovel to, cut them out. A couple I did have to use my little nippers there to break them up and then kind of twist them off. But all in all, it didn't require me to go get the loppers out and, a big blade or anything. So I was grateful for that. And here you can see my attempt here to get the first part of my little trench done. And then eventually I'm going to change the angle here, and you'll see that I'm digging a little deeper along, like I'm doing here, along the trench to try to get a shovel's width trench out of here. I mentioned that something hit the fence, and I talked to Rod since then, and he says it was him in the car. I don't know how in the world that happened, but he backed into it with our little Honda. And so I've got that now on the list next time we go to Home Depot to pick up a couple pickets and get those replaced. Here I am changing the angle, and you can see this kind of has a nice little curve where it meets the fence. And it's unfortunately not any easier digging on this end. In fact, I think there's even more roots we did take down a cedar tree a year when we replaced the fence or added the fence, the extra section of fence. We took down a section of a big tree, a big cedar tree that was just half dead, half alive. So that came out, and there are still some roots. Now the roots from that obviously are dead, and they're just pretty much breaking off with the shovel. I also mentioned that I might need to go get more dirt out of our dirt pile before I go fill the depression up by the rose bush at the road. And I'm totally shocked by how much dirt actually comes out of this little tiny area. This is maybe 8-10 feet long, and it turns out that the biggest part of this hump here is probably about 6 inches. So it ends up being a heaping wheelbarrow full of clay that we're actually taking out of here. So guys, there's another, this is sped up 4 times, and there's just only so much you can say about removing dirt like this. So let's just cut to the chase here where the fun stuff begins. Okay, so we're gonna put the iron piece back on the fence, and first I have to locate the holes, which did take a couple minutes. I should have marked them somehow before I removed them, but I did not do that. So here I am just using the drill and the strapping and a single screw to put that back on the fence. Now, if you can see that front leg that faces the driveway, it is up off the ground. I think it's about 1 inch, might even be 2 inches, but you won't be able to see that when we get this full of sweet gum pods. These are just little fake topiary balls that I got from Walmart. I think they're the 14-inch balls. They fit perfectly in this planter. This planter I bought thinking I would put annuals in it every year. The problem is that thing, you can't keep it balanced. So it doesn't really work for that. There I was showing you the little spiky sweet gum pods, and here is my 2 full pails of sweet gum pods that we're putting here. We have a never-ending supply of sweet gum pods. So this is kind of like somebody that lives with pine trees and you have pine cones, and you might use your pine cones for mulch. This is the same type of thing. It's just an easy way to utilize something that you've got that would just be thrown out or composted. The thing is, it takes them a long time to compost. So I love this idea of a renewable source of mulch on our property. And here is that wheelbarrow full of dirt. Can you believe that much came out? I was, like I said, shocked. I thought it would be definitely less than half of that. So this project is basically done, but it is going to take a few minutes to get everything cleaned up. I decide that I'm going to use the push broom and push broom the dirt over to the back of the fence. And I also, there's, in this general area, the asphalt has cracked a lot, so I have a bunch of weeds in the cracks. So I'm going to go ahead and use the shovel, or I don't actually think I really needed to use the shovel on the weeds. They just pulled out pretty good. I had hit these with some Roundup a week ago, a couple weeks ago, so everything is, weed-wise, is coming right out because they're dead. I really love this topiary right here. It kind of is a focal point as you come up the driveway. It's kind of centered in the middle of the driveway, so you can see it as you pull into the property. And it's just kind of a cool piece. An artist friend of mine in Illinois made this, and I have bought several pieces from him over the years. This is probably my favorite. And at one point, I was going to buy like a dozen of these from him and use those as part of my soap display. But again, the things tip over really easy, so I could never figure out how to incorporate them into my display. and not have them tip over on customers. So, but it's a cool piece regardless. And I probably should have given you a beauty shot of the approach up the driveway, but I didn't think of that. So here's your beauty shot, guys. Oops, let me pass through the screen here one more time, getting rid of this excess dirt. Come on, Jack, hurry up. Get out of there. People want to see what this is going to look like. Okay, there you go. Beauty shot. And then I had a couple little pine trees trying to start up there in the junipers. So I went ahead and cut those out, and I'm going to throw those on the compost. And let's take this excess dirt so I don't have to lug this whole heavy wheelbarrow full down to the road. Let's get rid of about half of this dirt into the dirt pile, which is right next to the excess grass pile. We saved the grass clippings because those do go on to the compost pile at some point when I need more greens. So we'll grab the shovel and we'll take a long walk down the driveway to the rose bush. And this is on the south side of the driveway. And I about tip over the wheelbarrow in the wrong spot. Luckily, I recover. And we're just going to spend a minute here tamping this down and spreading it out so it's much more even. We've been talking about reseeding an area in the backyard where the previous owner had their swimming pool. And if we do that this fall, we'll just bring some grass seed up here and try to keep this watered for a few days. Or maybe it will be a nice rainy spell when we can reseed this part. And when I finish that, then I look over and I've got some dead weeds and the cracks out on this part of the driveway. So I'm going to go ahead and get those up while I'm here. This is a job that Rod usually does with the trimmer, the string trimmer. But while I'm here, I might as well just go ahead and do this. It's a little noisy on a Saturday, or actually this I guess was a Wednesday morning to be doing this. But by now, this is probably 8:30-ish. So not a big deal. And honestly, it's not like I have, 20 neighbors within shouting distance. There's a neighbor right next to us. The guy across the road is quite a ways away because we have a long driveway and he has a long driveway. So, and then the other neighbor on the other side is a field away, and our backyard neighbor is the same guy that lives next to us. He owns a car repair business back there and a tow lot. All that to say, it didn't matter when I did this, so might as well just go ahead and do this. And it does look better without those weeds in there and creating an even bigger crack. Next up on the list is the sugar maple or white maple that has a ton of suckers always growing from this side of the tree. That is a pecan tree in the distance. And between that pecan tree and a bigger sugar maple to the right side of the screen, which you cannot see, this is kind of a smaller, immature sugar maple. Still a pretty good sized tree. And while I'm out here, I always try to pick up any branches that come down. So it's a little easier for Rod to mow then. He doesn't have to worry about it when he's mowing. He can just run up and down and not have to slow down. And I'm kind of laughing to myself. I just spent 6.5 hours chipping piles of wood the other day. So this is just the new start of the next pile that we'll be chipping in a couple months. And then on the side of the driveway, this planter has I think, is it a canna lily or a calla lily, I think, that has flopped over and it's fallen on the hydrangeas that I put in. So I'm just going to go ahead and chop that up while I'm here, add that to the pile. Here's some dahlias that I planted from seed. I'm just going to deadhead those. And I have more of these dahlia seeds that I'm trying to figure out if it's worthwhile to go ahead and start them now and get them in the ground, or if I should just wait for next year. I love dahlias, and these are certainly beautiful. happy to have them in the yard. And the next project requires the hedger to be plugged in, and I've got the cord set up here on the front porch. We'll get that plugged in and ready to go. These boxwoods out front that I'm actually just one of them that I'm trimming. Rod trimmed all these when my heel was broken. This one has some growth that just will not stop. It just is way faster growth habit than any of the others. So it requires a little extra pruning during the year. And I think I'm a little more aggressive when it comes to how much I prune than Rod is. So it just may be that he didn't give it as severe of a haircut as I would normally give it. And it grew back quicker. I don't know. I don't really remember having to do this twice a year. So, or who knows? I might have done this later in the season. But anyway, this is something that I do usually do. Rod hates cutting anything back because he feels like it is, killing the plant when it's really healthy for the plant to be trimmed. While I'm trimming this, let me just say in the distance is another white maple or sugar maple, and that tree is severely damaged from multiple windstorms since we've lived here. And I'm guessing because its spread is uneven, it's over the years taken the brunt of a lot of wind from the storms in the area. This faces west, and the west part of it is shorn off pretty good. If it does get a good blow that's from the west, it will fall and probably hit the crabapple that's next to it. And that is also pretty damaged too, but it still is beautiful when it blooms in the spring. So I'm not ready to take that down yet because I do enjoy the blooms from it. Okay, so that's basically all the trimming that I need. I think here I'm going to stop and we'll get all of the trimmings thrown into the wheelbarrow also. Oops, nope, a little bit more off the front. But basically this guy is done and we'll be moving on to our next project here in a second. This makes me laugh though. I struggle with this 18 or 24-inch hedge or whatever it is, and I see the landscapers on YouTube with their big 6-foot blades. I couldn't even pick it up. Next up is not a hard thing to do, but our Bermuda grass that grows into this planter is relentless. And so I'm going to spend, this does take quite a bit of time, at least a half an hour, probably more like 45 minutes to get this part done. I'm going to just weed through, this is liriope or monkey grass, and these are new plants that I put in last fall. They were a division from 2 huge liriope that we had in the backyard. So those are newer plants. They're not flowering, but as I work my way down, I think you'll see some of the purple flowers that are coming up. They're just really pretty this time of year. And this is kind of a weird area. This gets a lot of gushing water that comes off the roof right here. So I have strategically placed some concrete bird baths and leaf-shaped water features into this area, along with this big concrete column that really should be buried in the dirt here to be a little more aesthetically pleasing. But I kind of like the look, so I keep it. Now we've moved on to the other side. This is the north side of the house facing west. And same thing here. We've just got this persistent Bermuda grass that we've got to pull out of this mulched area. I hit this with Roundup a week ago, 2 weeks ago. I, again, don't really remember when I did that, but we're going to go ahead and pull that grass out of here. And yes, that is another concrete splash guard on this side of the house. Again, we get huge rainstorms with lots of gushing rain coming off the roof. And I think they have the small size gutters. When we do re-roof the house, we will put on bigger gutters because the gutters are not adequate for this house. And it does need another downspout in this area, which I don't think they did because there's a window on either side of the front porch. So that contributes to too much rain and a too small downspout. So we'll work on that guttering system at another time. It's just not something that we're prepared to do now, but when we re-roof, that will be definitely on the list. So my peony there behind the first liriope is about done. I'm preparing to cut that back. And then in the back of the planter against the house, that's Russian sage, which here is not having a real upright growth habit, and I don't really like how it looks. So that I am going to be probably spraying with Roundup to get out. I just threw some cuttings I had from the side yard of that a year or 2 years ago, and I'm just not liking it in here. So that is a little bit invasive. It just takes some diligence to get rid of it. So I'll be working on that. If it were growing upright and I could keep it nice and trimmed, I love the smell of Russian sage. I just don't like its growth habit in this particular place. This end of the planter, I'm coming to some more liriope that I divided this year, and I put them in the spring, and those are doing real well. I didn't divide them as small as the ones on the other side of this front porch, and I think they just look healthier. They had a little more root structure to take into this new spot. Now, liriope does great on clay. You will see this in almost every yard that has a border. They're used as a border plant along walkways, and it's just prolific down here. It's a no maintenance perennial. I love it. I happen to love the purple flowers, and I like the variegated look to the leaf. It's got that green and white striping going on in it. It's a very attractive little plant, and I love it because it is so prolific. Okay, I've made the turn onto the north side of this planter, and just the same process. We're pulling out the dead grass and getting rid of this Bermuda grass. This is an ongoing thing. I have to do this several times during the year. Here you can see the new liriope starts that were just put in this spring, and yes, they are doing wonderfully. In spite of all that Bermuda grass that tries to take over. Off the colors up there, the orangey and the yellow, that's just some zinnias that I just planted in a little trench. Not many of them came up, again, because I'm not a great waterer. I forget when I plant things to come back out and water. So what came up though was beautiful, and this was a pack of, Dollar Tree zinnia seeds. So I'm happy regardless of what I got. Okay, that's the last of the grass to clean up, and then we're going to move on to getting this dead ligustrum out of here. That's what I believe this is. And again, that's Russian sage in the background that I will be removing eventually. But this planter, this weed fabric is from the previous owner, and it honestly looks like it's a decade old. You can see through it. I'm guessing that at one time it was black or dark gray or something, but it's not doing its job anymore if you can see through it. I, in a way, wish that I had started this planter by pulling up all the weed fabric, but to be honest with you, I didn't know that it was there. And these planters were almost, let's say, 95% filled with weeds when we moved in. So what I did is cover them with cardboard, and start mulching. So now we're to the point where the cardboard is not doing its job very good anymore. And certainly this weed fabric hasn't done its job in years. So we are to the point where we just need to re-cardboard again. And I think the weed pressure in the center of the this bed is not really a problem. It's a couple weeds every now and again. So we could use cardboard as mulch when we put whatever plants end up being in here, and we'd probably be just fine. But who knows when this is all going to happen. Now, this project, this particular plant, you can see it was really a pretty good sized plant. And this is the second or the third one like this that I pulled out. And Rod was going to do this job for me. He just didn't get to it before I got to it. And as you'll see, this ended up taking about 15 minutes. So it was really much easier than I expected it to be. And again, I accomplished this using my nippers and just the shovel. So all in all, not a bad deal. The taproot, or the roots that were going down, the ones that are holding this in place, are a couple inches thick, but I'm able, through twisting and turning, I'm able to get the that cut enough, broken off enough that it can slide out of there. And you'll see that's going to happen pretty quick. And it doesn't send me flying, which is always nice when that happens. And there we go. And I will use my nippers and cut that out. Nippers and the shovel to get that the rest of the way out. Over time, dirt has become mounded up around the base of the plant. So the next part of this is just going to be trying to shave off that mound and then just tuck it back under the, I hesitate to even call that landscape fabric, but that's what I'm going to do. So guys, if you have any suggestions for what you would put in these front flower beds, let me know. Again, I'm trying to do this budget wise, so let me know like plants I could start or perennials that I could get that I could end up dividing. I don't see it yet. Once I see it, I'll execute the plan, but I just can't quite see what I'm going to do. So your ideas would be appreciated. Leave them in the comments down below. And guys, if you're liking our content, we would sure love to grow this channel. So please like, subscribe, and yes, leave any comment down below. Anything helps us get better, and anything that can help in the yard, make things easier, especially for a couple old people trying to keep their yard up nice, we would appreciate it. Well guys, that is today's projects done. I had my list, I got everything done on the list. I've just got to put the wheelbarrow away here, but I'm having some cold water. That was 3 hours, I guess. Feels good to have that done. Now the sweet gum mulch area, that I did, if you have sharp eyes, you noticed I had more sweet gum in those pails because we've had really windy days the last couple days, and we got a couple more big branches down out of that sweet gum tree. And so I again shredded off the sweet gum pods and added them to the pail. And I just, when I took the excess dirt back to the dirt pile, we will have enough to fill another basket, the nut catcher basket, and put that on the mulched area, the new mulched area. That will need another 2 pails worth to fully mulch it, and that'll give a good 3 to 4 inch layer of those sweet gum pods in that area. Right now it just looks covered, but I can still see bare dirt through it, but it's much better than it was. So I'm happy about that. And then everything else today was just little ongoing projects, deadheading. Maybe a bigger project was that pulling out, I think it was a listeria at the front planter. They might have had a whole row of those along the front of the house at one point, and that one had one branch or two branches that were alive that first year that we moved in, and I cut it back really severely and was just thinking over the last year that maybe it would bounce back, but it never bounced back. So that's why I pulled that out. And those, I don't have any big plan yet for those areas. I kind of just like cottage garden flowers along the front there. I do like the structure of the boxwoods and the big tall ilex, I think is what those are called. It looks like the same kind of leaf as on a boxwood, but they grow tall and upright, kind of pointy. I like that, the look of that. But I don't know what I'm going to plan to put in there for sure. And to plan it without spending a whole lot of money. That's the, that's the key. If I wanted to go to the nursery and spend $500, we could have it done in a weekend, but I don't want to do it that way. So anyway, I hope you guys have enjoyed working along with me today. I appreciate you guys leaving any comments. If you have any ideas, any suggestions, anything you'd do different, just let me know in the comments area. And if not, we'll be back next week for another project. We'll see what we can get into next week. Thanks for being here.